Today is a very big day for Doom Eternal. Not only have we got brand new news, more gameplay, we have also got a ton of new reviews for Doom Eternal, played by various game journalists and YouTubers out there who have had a lucky chance to play Doom Eternal's first few levels, which took around about 3 hours of gameplay. And after watching these different reviews and looking at the different gameplay, I've decided to make a review of what I think Doom Eternal is going to be, the positives and the negatives, and my overall opinion of it. Now, it's definitely worth talking about the negatives here as well, because there are some that I've noticed. Maybe not the word negative, but more concerns. And these actually are some big concerns of mine when coming to the full product of Doom Eternal, when we finally get to play it. But first of all, there is so many cool things that we got to see for the game. First of all, like I said, we got to see a lot more gameplay showed by various YouTubers and reviewers out there who got a lucky chance to play the first few maps, and overall everything I saw was beyond incredible. It was just absolutely amazing. We got to see a lot more of the gameplay, a lot more of actually what the story is going to be. Surprisingly, they actually showcased quite a lot here, and we also got to see a few new surprises that I was not expecting. But it's probably worth talking about the gameplay first, because of course that is what Doom is. It's always the gameplay, it always comes first. And what most people were saying, and what I could take from the actual clips, is that Doom Eternal's gameplay is going to be fast and brutal. This is something that we've known for quite some time, that Doom Eternal was going to be much harder than Doom 2016 was. But what people have been saying about it definitely backs that theory, because some people have been absolutely destroyed by like the earliest of levels, because you're already playing through the first 3 maps here and they're already dying multiple times, these YouTubers and reviewers. So you know how hard this game is going to be when you're playing the first few maps and you're already getting destroyed by like the lower tier enemies or the smaller fights. That's before we've even got to the final maps, when you go against multiple cyber demons and archviles. It's going to be a tough ride. But the gameplay itself is mostly fast, and it's like a sandbox kind of game as well, where you have so many different hazards, traps, and different abilities that you can use. That just endless possibilities on how you want to interact with the environment you're around. There are so many different creative ways of killing enemies, and that's just with the environment alone. That's not including the weapons, because we got to see each weapon is purposely modified for demon killing as well. They are modded to the teeth with different attacks and abilities that really add to the gameplay overall. We got to see a little bit more of the modification on the side of the weapons as well. There's going to be similar to Doom 2016, but by the looks of it, with a lot more different abilities as well added into the mix. We thought, at least I thought, that Doom 2016 had a lot of different abilities for each weapon, maybe excluding the super shotgun, but now it looks like there's going to be even more, and there is more different collectibles that you have to get in Doom Eternal to upgrade this and the Slayer as well. So the modification in Doom Eternal looks like it's going to be like 10 times bigger to what it was in Doom 2016, and that alone was massive as well. So this is a huge step up as well. The gameplay shown was actually from the first few levels of Doom Eternal, and we didn't even actually get to see the first map because it wasn't allowed to be recorded apparently. So we got to see pretty much what I'm guessing is going to be the second and third level of Doom Eternal, and already we're starting to see a huge amount of story, gameplay and action all thrown in. The gameplay starts off pretty tough from the beginning, I should imagine, because we're already fighting enemies like Arachnotrons, Hell Knights, Cacodemons, Mancubi, Revenants, and all the lower tier enemies all from the get-go. So it looks like there's going to be no slowly introducing enemies in this game. It's going to be pretty much straight from the start, multiple enemies at you at a time. This probably excludes enemies like the Archvile that are coming, I'm guessing, in the later half maybe, or just before the later half, the same as the Tyrant or the Cyber Demon. So it'll probably be a bit later before we see them, but for the majority of the enemies it looks like we're going to be seeing these straight from the get-go, and that's the same for the weapons as well. Unless it's just for the gameplay shown, it looks like most of the weapons we'll be getting from the first few maps, meaning gameplay goes from 0 to 1,000 in literally a few seconds. There is no warming up in Doom Eternal. It's straight into the action until the final episode. The locations shown were actually on the cultist base, most of this, and we got to see what our mission was here, and that was A, finding the super shotgun, and B, taking down quote unquote the priest. So we knew from the trailer that we will be fighting and going against the priest. We saw that right away back against the original story trailer for Doom Eternal shown at E3 2019. So we knew that was going to happen, but we didn't know whereabouts it was going to take place in the story, and it's definitely going to be an early one by the looks of it. Now the interesting thing here is actually what the announcer says here, and the announcer is on about stopping the Slayer and saving the priest. So it looks like each different location we're going to go to is actually going to have some kind of announcer talking about the Doomslayer in some kind of way. Like when we was on the Phobos base, it said warning, the Slayer has entered the facility. Well, this one obviously says they need the Slayer killed, so it is pretty amazing, at least to me, that we get to see all these different locations that literally built warning systems about the Doomslayer. He is that overpowered and crazy. Literally the whole world fear him. It's just amazing. I'm really glad that they actually added this in. It'd be interesting to see if we get to see this anywhere else as well, or if this will be the only other one we get to see, but I thought that's pretty cool. At one point when we was going to get the SSG, we was actually controlling a Revenant, which is really unexpected for the campaign. First of all I thought, well, this is a bit weird, but now I really enjoy the idea. So what it is, the Slayer comes across like this weird machine. It's like some sort of hellish argent machine, I'm not sure what it is, and he was able to convert his mind over to the Revenant, and then the Revenant attacked the rest of the demons in that level and secured the super shotgun for the Doomslayer. Now the other interesting theory is, of course, is actually Vega is 100% back. We knew that was kind of happening, but it looks like he's going to be in the game right from the get-go. I thought maybe we'd find him later on, so it's going to be interesting to see how Vega actually comes back. At the end of Doom 2016, it did look like Vega was actually being saved by the Doomslayer onto some kind of USB stick or hard drive, so he was able to survive and probably be used again by the Doomslayer, and that would explain why he's straight at the beginning, because the Doomslayer knew how valuable he would be to him, so he kept Vega for his own personal use. He's now what I like to call crazy mission, which we still don't know much about because there is just so much stuff in Doom Eternal is unreal. But yeah, Vega is here, and it looks like he's going to be here right from the get-go, probably to the end of the game as well. So yeah, controlling Revenants as well is pretty interesting. I really like the idea. I don't know how much of this will be in the campaign, if it's going to be like a regular thing, controlling different demons. But I don't want it to be a regular thing. I want it to be a thing that shows up once, maybe twice, because that'd be kind of cool. But when I was playing Doom 2016, especially like various snap maps and multiplayer, it was not my favourite thing to play as the demons. I'd rather just play as the casual game, the casual Slayer or something, instead of actually playing as like the Revenant or the Mancubus. But still, it's a really cool idea and very creative. I like it, and it's going to be fun, especially if we get to play as enemies like the Cyberdemon or the Archvile. That'd be a lot more crazy fun. One of the other things they're making a huge focus on in Doom Eternal, of course, is the planning of the overall gameplay overall, how you actually tackle it, and that's like dealing with resources. So as you may know, ammo in Doom Eternal and health and armor are actually going to be a lot more rare, placed around the map, and these fights are going to be a lot more tougher. You're actually supposed to use different demons as your way of getting ammo. The best way to describe it is you're actually harvesting resources from these demons through various tactics, and that actually means using your equipment very effectively to actually do this. If you go in guns blazing, you're likely going to run out of ammo, health and armor, then you're not going to deal with it, because each tool collects different resources. So your flamethrower collects armor. Once you burn an enemy and then shoot them, they drop armor. Your chainsaw drops ammo, which is very important, so you need to use that sparingly, and glory kills drop health. So each thing will need to be used. You can't just glory kill and not, because you won't get any ammo or armor. You can't just use a flamethrower because you won't get any health or ammo, or you won't get any armor. So if you just do one of these things or none, you're not going to get all the resources, so it's going to be very difficult to adapt to at first, but because you constantly need to keep moving and planning out what you need to harvest next. If your health's getting low, you need to make sure you're building up on health or at least armour to try and deal with this. And of course, at the same time, you need to make sure you don't run out of ammo, so you need to keep using your chainsaw. It's going to be a very hard gameplay mechanic to adapt to. That is because of how different this actually will be to Doom 2016. This time, it's more like a puzzle. You need to figure out which weapon to use first, which resource you need more than the other. Each weapon has a purpose, like the plasma gun is really effective against the shielded enemies now because it destroys their shield. Of course, like the SSG with the meat hook, you need to make sure you're using each weapon effectively, if not you will die. The same goes for the tools as well. You need to use the flamethrower pretty much all the time if you want to get armour and ammo, so you need to use that very effectively, if not you will die. It's definitely going to be a much harder gameplay mechanic to adapt to compared to Doom 2016, but it's definitely going to be worth it in the end. It's going to be a much more enjoyable experience, I think. It's going to be difficult at first, and I think there's going to be a lot of raging on the first few maps, but once you've learned the new system and how it works, it's definitely going to be a lot more fun to play than I think Doom 2016 was. One other thing worth mentioning, of course, is the new enemies that we get to see in the way as well. We've seen most of these enemies now, at least somewhere along the line, but we've got to see a little bit more of certain enemies that we've rarely seen at this point. That includes the Whiplash. So the Whiplash is that weird sort of snake-like enemy. This, we got to see how they actually attack, which is different to what I expected, but it's pretty cool. They kind of have like a Summoner style attack. They shoot like rays of Argent energy at the player. Plus, at the same time, they have like a close range attack where they're using like blades or something along them lines. They're pretty cool. They are very fast actually. I was not expecting to be as quick as they were, but they move very quick. Another enemy that really tests this player's speed here as well. And it looks like they're going to be a fairly common enemy as well. They take a few hits to put down. They're no like Hell Knight tier difficulty, but they are still very tough. And of course, this time we got to see the Revenant play very good as well. It looks to me like they're going to be a lot harder to dodge in this game. Their shots look a lot more faster. They're a lot more sort of difficult to avoid. They're sort of planned out a bit better to what the Revenants were in Doom 2016, where their rockets are really sort of spread all over the place, and there was just so easy to dodge. It was pretty pathetic actually. The Revenants in Doom 2016 were a joke, but this game looks like they're going to be a lot harder to kill. To me, they look smaller to what they did in Doom 2016, especially after you've taken off their armour when you can attack them now, like with the Destructible Demons mechanic. The Revenants look a lot smaller and they don't look as intimidating, which is ironic because in this game they look like they actually are going to be more intimidating. But yeah, the Revenants to me, they look pretty cool in this game, and it looks like they're going to play a lot better, so I can't wait to go against more of them. And of course, we got to see how they attack a lot better when you actually get to play as one as well early on in the campaign. So there's definitely going to be a lot more variety in Doom Eternal with the gameplay and the different themes and areas we get to explore. In Doom 2016, you're either in Hell or you're in Mars. That's the only two places you go to, and despite the levels being different, most of them looked and played very similar. Doom Eternal is pretty much the exact opposite. We get to see so many different new locations here. Each level is a complete new planet, and planets that are just full to the top with different details and design and, more importantly, lore on Doom's history. It is absolutely crazy on the variety in Doom Eternal that's been showcased so far. They went all out. There was no holding back here. They went on every crazy theme they could think of. They added absolutely everything, and it's just amazing. It's really cool to see all these different locations, and that's just the ones we know of. I'm pretty sure there's going to be new places that obviously are very spoiler heavy in the campaign that they have not even shown yet. The same goes for probably weapons, new locations and enemies. There's just so much stuff behind the scenes that we've not seen yet, which is crazy to think about on all the stuff for Doom Eternal that they've showcased so far. The game is getting closer to the release date. I just cannot wait to see what they're hiding behind the closed doors at this moment, but there's just what they have showcased just seems absolutely incredible. They have completely changed what I see an FPS game as. I think Doom Eternal is more than just an FPS game now. It is absolutely insane. It's crazy to think that the first Doom actually popularised FPS games. Now I think Doom Eternal is going to do that again. It's going to evolve the franchise once again They couldn't just do it once, they had to do it twice. Is that crazy? Doom is going to be a game that is going to be talked about for years to come. One of the other cool things from the trailer was all the different people and entities that the Doomslayer is going to interact with within the story. We got to see the King, who seems to be against the Slayer, and we got to see this guy, which apparently is the Betrayer. So this is someone that's been in Doom Eternal lore, or Doom 2016 lore as well, for quite some time. And it's this guy, and we actually get to speak and interact with him as if he's like a normal person. Awesome stuff. I cannot wait to see where this guy actually comes into the story and what he's for and why we're actually with him. But maybe because this guy has his own prayer suit as well, what if this guy is actually the Marauder? What if later on he gets corrupted by some sort of hell force and turns him into the Marauder that we fight him throughout the campaign? This could be him. He has the suit for it, so it would make sense. Because this guy is very similar to the Doomslayer as well, so maybe that would explain why these two are so similar, and why the Marauder is, of course, looks and acts like the Doomslayer as well. I might explain a bit. I mean, that's just like a random theory that I thought as soon as I saw this guy. Either way, we're going to see a lot more of this character, and we're going to find out a lot more of his backstory, so that's going to be absolutely amazing. I'm also loving the return of the power-ups. We got to see the Soul Seer, which is awesome, and of course the quad damage. Like I said, I was getting worried that power-ups would not actually be in Doom Eternal, so I was glad to see these, because as I think we have not actually seen any power-ups in any other gameplay clips for Doom Eternal of this sense anyway. We've seen obviously the Doomslayer has random upgrades and stuff, but in terms of the classic like quad damage or the hastes, I don't think we've actually seen any of these yet, but I'm glad to see the quad damage making a return. One small thing worth mentioning is once you actually grab this, you can actually see the Doomslayer sort of reflection for a split second on the screen. You can see like his eyes turn into a different colour. So when he picked up the quad damage, his eyes turned to like the purpley colour that the quad damage is. So that is pretty awesome, and I cannot wait to actually try out quad damage in Doom Eternal, which I think is going to be much needed. Now, here comes the fun part, talking about what I would call the concerns of Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal is definitely shaping up to be one of the best Doom games, and of course one of the best FPS games of all time. But there are a few concerns of mine which I think could get in the way of it being a perfect game. And these are just purely mentioning them. Obviously I love Doom, so I'm not going to sit here and start nitpicking, but there's just a few things that I thought are worth mentioning because they're not really my style, or maybe a few other people's style as well. And that is, first of all, the platforming. Now, I like platforming in certain aspects of Doom. I mean, Doom 2016 had it, and it was my least favourite part about Doom, but I kind of understood why it was there. It did change the gameplay up a little bit. Now, this game is going to use it massively compared to Doom 2016. It looks like that most of the levels are going to be connected together by some kind of platforming area. That is a concern of mine because I said I don't really like platforming that much, so to sort of going from having no platforming at all barely in the other games, excluding Doom 2016 really, to being full to the top of it in Doom Eternal, it's a worry because I don't know how well these areas are going to play out without playing it myself. I am concerned on how much of a focus platforming will be. I'm hoping there's not going to be levels that are completely focused around platforming. But what we saw from the gameplay and what the different reviewers were saying is platforming is a huge part in Doom Eternal. The other thing is they feel out of place in certain areas in Doom Eternal, in my opinion. Instead of actually being like hazards of the level or parts of the environment that the Doomslayers interact with, say like the Argent Tower from Doom 2016, you're climbing the tower, which is part of the infrastructure of the Mars base. Here on the Doom Eternal levels, you just seem to be jumping across random rocks in the middle of the air, or just random platforms sometimes with like fire wheels going around, or just random hazards that just seem so out of place in certain areas, in my opinion. It just seems like they decided to turn Doom Eternal in some parts into like a PlayStation 2 platforming game, because that's what I get from some of these areas here. They just feel a little bit out of place. I mean, this is few and far between, but it takes a little bit getting used to as well, looking at this, where you just see this random platforming segment halfway across the map in a Doom Eternal level. Now we've known it's going to be like this right since we saw the Google Stadia gameplay, where they started to showcase a little bit more of the platforming, and what the reviewers have said has just grown my concerns a little bit further, to be honest. And I'm just hoping the platforming is not going to be a huge deal in Doom Eternal. I don't mind platforming a little bit. It does look fun, it is fun, but it shouldn't take away from the overall experience of the gameplay, which of course is the main part of Doom. It always has been and it always will be. The other concern is actually the story. Now I can't wait to find out all the different lore and everything as much as the next guy, but the other thing that worries me is the fact that once again it takes away from the gameplay. Honestly, I do want a little bit more story to what was in Doom 2016, but at the same time I don't want 10-15 minute long cutscenes every like 30 minutes or so. I want to be more in the gameplay than the story. And what the reviewer is saying, there is actually quite a lot of moments where the story heavily focused. Once again, I don't mind this as long as it doesn't take away from the gameplay, then it should be good. So my main concern is the story and the platforming don't take over the gameplay. They can be there and I will enjoy them, I know I definitely will. I just want more gameplay than story and platforming. And that's really it really. That's the only concerns I have. I think the rest of everything is turning out to be incredible. Doom Eternal is definitely a contender to be my favourite game of all time, without a shadow of a doubt. It just looks amazing. There's just so much stuff here. It's just Doom 2016 on steroids. There's so much more here. It's incredible, and I cannot wait to actually play it for myself, which is only coming up in literally less than 2 months time now. It's amazing. I cannot wait to try it. So anyway, what did you think of these reviews and gameplay? Did you like it? Do you think they showcased once again too much? Because now we've seen a lot of Doom Eternal gameplay. Or do you think that you still need to see more before you actually make your final decision of the game, if it's worth buying or not? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.